All right, fellow babies, welcome back to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. You're watching this on SIFTD, you're our kind of consumer because you're paying for great content. If you're watching it on YouTube, you could have watched this a week ago on SIFTD.net for $30 a year. A Starbucks coffee a month. Come on. We got to pay for this content. I don't have to pay for it. But Shane has to create great content. The more you join, the more you can afford to hire great people. He's not paying me. You're getting this for free. That's why it's on YouTube. But please join. And if you have questions for the show, submit them to us through the SIFTD website or on Twitter at Michael Pachter and copy at SIFTD Games. Here we go. This week's first question. From SIFTD, from Burko. Will MPD ever make the transition into the 21st century and track digital sales, or will services like Steam Spy become more prevalent? Wow. That's a great question. I don't actually even know what Steam Spy is, nor do I care. Look, the NPD would love to track digital. NPD is kind of an historical accident. Interesting company, valuable service, but a historical accident. The letters NPD stand for National Purchase Diaries. Nobody knew that. I don't even think you can find that on the internet. I actually asked the CEO once and he told me. NPD used to provide a service for retailers back in probably the 40s or 30s or something, but pretty much before computers, where the retailers would keep a register a log at the cash register of everything that was purchased. So that was a diary. And then the NPD group would pull them all together and kind of track how things were selling, and retailers could say, oh shoot, this store sold 3 pairs of Levi's and that store sold 10, and our competitor sold 25 across the street. What are they doing right or wrong or different? And it helps retailers figure out what kind of products to stock, what to charge. It was really a great service. It morphed into tracking all this stuff online, and the NPD gets point of sale data feeds. So literally when your game scans at the cash register at Walmart, it feeds right into the NPD's computers. They capture it real time, and then they kind of report back to the different retailers. Walmart has the same thing internally. They know what they sold, but they don't know what GameStop sold. So Walmart can see, Call of Duty this month sold 1 million copies. I'm making this up. And we only sold 150,000. But last month it sold 1 million and we sold 225,000. Why did we lose market share? So it helps the retailers understand their business. The NPD is gracious enough in the category of games to allow guys like me to purchase the data. I'm not allowed to purchase the data for things like GoPro cameras. I can't get that data. They sell it to some people, not to others, and it's a profit deal. I mean, I'm not disparaging them. They're trying to make as much money as they can. They don't want to give it to guys like me for a fee because a lot of my clients then wouldn't buy it or somebody else wouldn't buy it. So I get it. I mean, it's a balance. But the issue is they exist at retail for physical goods because of a historical accident where they used to track stuff that no one else could figure out how to track. And I'm sure they had giant mainframe computers back in the 60s to compile all this stuff. Now, obviously, it's all point of sale and flows into a cloud database. But they don't have the same luxury for digital. And the reason they don't is digital is distributed differently than physical. Physical games, just to use the US, 90% of physical games are sold through Amazon, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, GameStop. Literally 90%. So it's very easy to have a contract with 5 guys because they want to see all the stuff sold across the board: blue jeans, televisions, every other category, headphones, cameras, every other category that NPD captures. So they participate. It's not the same with digital. Console digital is sold through Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo. They don't care to share that with NPD. So NPD doesn't get that data, and Sony and Microsoft don't actually know what one another sells of a particular download pack or particular arcade type game content. They offer different arcade content. Obviously, Sony has its and Microsoft has its own, but sometimes they have the same, I guess, like Unravel. They sell the same DLC, but I don't think they care to share, and they certainly don't care to give it to the MPD so the MPD can turn around and charge me for it. So they don't have access to that. On the telephone side, again, the world is bigger than just two, but the Google Play Store and the iTunes Store, the App Store, capture game transactions. They do so because Apple charges 30% of every dollar spent in Clash of Clans, and Google charges 30% of every dollar spent in Clash of Clans. And those guys have no interest whatsoever in sharing that with MPD. They barely share it with App Annie. And what they give App Annie is a ranking of sales daily, but they don't tell them the amount. So App Annie has to guess. They're trying to be like MPD for mobile and provide digital sales numbers, but they just make it up. And again, with educated PhDs in mathematics writing complicated algorithms, but they don't know the answer. They're making it up based on some data that they have, but they certainly don't have data from the big publishers. Then the last piece of digital, I'm sure I'm leaving something out here, is PC digital. And there's a bunch of different ways to make money on PC digital. Steam, private company, downloads, I would guess, 60 or 70 or 80% of all PC games sold, with another 10 or 20 percentage points sold by other download services, Origin, there's a bunch. And none of them share that with MPD. So Valve doesn't care. They know what they sell. They don't really care what other people sell, and they know they're dominant. So purchase games go through Steam and Origin and services like that. Free-to-play games on PC or proprietary games like StarCraft and Diablo are sold directly by Battle.net. So Activision Blizzard has Battle.net. They don't have any interest in sharing that with MPD. And free-to-play games are are downloaded for free, like League of Legends PC game, World of Tanks PC game. Those revenues, which are hundreds of millions of dollars, probably $1 billion in the case of League of Legends, why would Riot give that number to the MPD? So no, the MPD has no access to any of that. So the answer to your question is, no, they will never make the transition unless they are able to successfully convince all these different distributors of digital content that those guys should voluntarily give MPD their data so MPD can turn around, package it, and sell it to people like me. I don't think Valve appreciates that I can make more money if I have their data, nor do I think they care. And I think they do appreciate that MPD can make more money if MPD has their data, and I don't think they care about that either. So the answer is, I don't think you're going to get console data from Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo shared. I don't think you're going to get PC full game download data from Valve, Origin, whoever else shared. I don't think you're going to get iTunes Store, or what's called App Store, or Google Play ever shared. And I don't think you're going to get voluntary compliance from the individual guys who do PC, like Wargaming and Riot Games, sharing on those kinds of streams. I'm probably missing something, but pretty much the answer is MPD's never going to get the data because the guys who own it don't see any compelling reason where they would benefit by giving it to MPD. All right, next question from SIFTD from Dyson XP. Okay, how is it that sites such as G2A, CD Keys, Green Man Gaming are able to sell games at a much cheaper price? I have bought new AAA games for 50% off the recommended retail price. Is anyone losing out when I purchase from these sites? Pretty much all these guys are in business for a profit. And so if they sell you a $50 game for $25, that's because they're getting a discounted copy of it, and they're selling a digital download, so it's viewed as an incremental sale. They sell them typically for a limited period of time. It's not like the day the game comes out, you get these things, discounted there where they're $50 everywhere else. They get them when they get them, and there are Steam sales all the time as well. The game publisher, so the developer in most cases, but there could be a publisher, is willing to take less if they think the sales are incremental. I think the question is similar to asking, why is it that I don't have to pay as much to see a movie like Star Wars a few weeks after it comes out? And it's because if you didn't buy it, if you didn't buy a ticket the first week, then the studio figures you were less likely, the movie theater figures you're an incremental purchase. So, the first week to see it in IMAX is probably $20, and 3-4 weeks later you could probably see a matinee for $7, and they're willing to take it because they think you're either an incremental purchaser or buying it again. Same with games. They're just looking at these sales sites as incremental purchaser, and they're segmenting the consumer into the guy who's always looking for a bargain. The thought is you're going to buy more games if you're able to buy them at a bargain, and there are just people who won't pay full price for a game because they don't have to. I can give you a pretty simple tip. If you're willing to wait a year or two, you can buy every game at a discount, like a steep discount. So it's the same thing. These guys get these promotional, copies. Essentially, they're digital copies. And if there's too much demand, they'll probably disappear from the site if they think they can sell them at higher prices. More dynamic pricing, though, just typically is better for everybody. So I don't think anybody's losing out. But if the sites convert a full price customer to a discount customer, theoretically they're losing something, but you're more likely to buy more stuff if you save money. So the idea is you're getting enjoyment out of it. They figure you're going to spend $50 on something. Why not buy 2 games for $25 and enjoy them? And at lower price, you're actually willing to take a chance on a game you might not otherwise like. And if you don't like it, you stop playing it. Nobody really lost. Okay, we've got a question from SIFTD from Sleepy Droid. If Windows Store fails, do you think Microsoft will drop yet again from PC gaming or do what everyone wants it to do and release its games on Steam? Windows Store is not going to fail. They're not going to close it. They're not going to release their games on Steam. I don't know how more clearly to say that. Microsoft doesn't care about, whether Windows Store makes money or not. It isn't like it's a physical location where they're paying billions of dollars in salaries. It's a frickin' website. It probably literally costs them $5,000 a year to maintain. They're Microsoft, for Christ's sake. They have 10 billion employees. It's literally probably 1 man month a year of somebody's time to run that thing. No, it's not going to fail. They don't care. They are trying to just own PC. Steam is a distribution model for publishers. Microsoft, as far as I can really tell, there's almost no games that they care about the PC version of their game, maybe Gears. I'm guessing everything that Microsoft makes for Xbox One will be on PC because I think that they're really more interested in getting Windows 10 and PC interoperability, cross-platform play. I think that's really where they're headed. And so no, I don't think they need Steam. I don't think they care if you buy a copy of the game on PC or not. And if you can't find it, you're lame, because you tend to look for the game. I can't believe there's anybody who only goes to Steam to buy games. You go to Steam because they have virtually everything, but they don't have any Blizzard games, and they don't have any EA games, and they don't have any Microsoft games. There's 3. And again, not that EA makes very good PC games, but Command and Conquer. They make a few, Sims. Blizzard makes a lot of great PC games. They're not on Steam, and they seem to be doing just fine. So if you want to play StarCraft 2, you know where to find it. And if you can't find it, type StarCraft 2 into your browser, type StarCraft 2 for sale, and it'll show you to go to Battle.net. So you'll figure it out, trust me. It's just not that hard. So again, Steam is just a place where, they're an aggregator of other people's content. They're a great aggregator. You go there because there's lots of great stuff. But they're not the only aggregator. They're the number 1 aggregator for PC. I would bet they literally are 60 or 70% of all PC game sales. But they're not 100, and that other 30%, people can find it somewhere else. I don't think you need Microsoft to join. So no chance. Okay, our last question this week from Twitter, from @Rigo8582. If you made a pie chart of the cost of developing a typical AAA game, how much would be split between the developers, middleware, voiceover, advertising, marketing, etc.? Okay, I will never make a pie chart as long as I live. So the answer is, because at least you said the word typical. Obviously, AAA games vary all over the place. Let's say that a cost of a game is typical is $60 million. And again, it depends on who makes it. If it's Ubisoft, it's 85 or 90 million. If it's Rockstar, it's over 100 million. But typical is probably $60 million. The biggest cost in there is developers. And to do a $60 million game, probably 50 to 55 million is developer salaries, probably 50. And probably 5 million is all of the costs of housing them, of setting up systems, of giving them kind of access to one another. And then the other 5 million is probably all the different tools and voiceover actors. It depends on the game. I mean, if the game doesn't have a star doing voiceover, those guys make peanuts. I mean, those guys are making $1,000, $2,000 a day if they're lucky, and that's a lot of money. Except that the typical voiceover actor maybe is going to record for 5 days, maybe 10. If you're like the main character in the game, maybe 20. So it's going to be hard to get up to even $1 million for all the voiceover actors. It's different, I think, if it's maybe Nolan North in the next Uncharted, because they kind of need him. He's become a star because people know his voice, or Mark Hamill in Batman as the Joker, or Sean Ashmore in Quantum Break, because he's a modest star. Kiefer Sutherland was in a Call of Duty. But even those guys, most of them do it because they like doing it. And like the most expensive guy I've ever heard of in voiceover is like 10 grand a day. So, they're not working that many days, so it really is tiny. The better question is, so the $60 million cost, as I said, 90% probably for the developers and housing them, and 10% for all the other stuff. Middleware is cheap. I mean, Epic's Unreal Engine, I can't even believe it's $1 million license per game. So I would guess that Epic is making, $100,000 or $200,000 per game, but they're used in 200 or 300 games. So I mean, they're literally making tens of millions of dollars, maybe 20s or 30s or 50s million dollars from the engine, but it's a relatively inexpensive cost relative to the $60 million cost of the game. On advertising marketing, games are budgeted for advertising at somewhere between 10 and 15% of expected sales. So when you have a game that kind of sells the same amount every year, let's go with Madden, kind of a 5 million units sold, let's go with $250 million of sales, they probably spend 15% of that. So, good round numbers, $37.5 million a year in marketing. If you have a game like Call of Duty, which is really important to Activision, but it does way more than $1 billion in sales, they don't spend more than about 100 or 110 million or 120 million because they don't need to, because they know they're going to sell a lot. They tend to press the marketing right in front to remind everybody, and then kind of on the tail of several weeks after the game launched to get Christmas, givers to give, and then they resurrect the marketing budget around DLC drops. But somewhere between 10 and 15. If you look at the game publishers and you look at their income statements, pretty much every one of them is between 10 and 15% in sales and marketing expense. Activision is at the low end, probably 11 or 12. I think Ubisoft, Take-Two are probably at the high end at about 16, but it's pretty much budgeted at that 10 to 15. And the reason that Ubi is higher is just because they have more games and fewer 20 million unit sellers. So if you don't have a 20 million unit seller, it's hard to budget much less than 15. So again, that number is going to vary, and the 60 million cost of the game doesn't matter as much as the sales. If you make a $60 million game and you think it's going to do 100 million in sales, that was just a bad decision. You shouldn't have made it. But if you think it's going to do 2 billion in sales, Call of Duty probably doesn't cost much more than 60 million, but its marketing budget is much, much higher than Madden, which also probably costs 60 million, but sells much, much less. So I hope that's responsive. If you have a question, please submit it to me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, copy at SIFTD Games. If you have a question and you're a SIFTD member, you can post it on the site, and we welcome your questions and comments. Thanks again for joining us.